Maybe
into
we
it.
should just get into it and
Yeah.
start and
Yeah, so we called it Navigating Altered States of Consciousness, this program, because not all of it has to do with plant medicine or psychedelics in the form of a substance. It could also be breath work that takes you to psychedelic states. So there's a lot of things that get us there. So some people are looking at this kind of information specifically for work with psychedelics, which is great, but for those who aren't and still want to use it to navigate, it's a phenomenal tool.
yeah, I think that part of the reason why I love this work is because it has allowed me to just like access my unconscious mind and go deep into the things that I need to see. And as Ed was saying before, not only plant medicine will allow you to get into those states, and like accessing the unconscious mind can be done through dreams, through art, through archetypes and oracles, plant medicine, sound, breath work, meditation, like so many different realms, even what you mentioned before, Wayne. And it's so interesting because, like, even just doing work in the dream space can be life changing. You can have a dream, which is a lucid dream, and you can do work in that lucid dream and have a life changing experience after that. It's not just like, oh, I went to an ayahuasca and I had a lucid experience there. It's like even in my daily life, I can achieve, yeah, I can achieve that state. And so for me, it's so interesting to understand how to navigate those states because they're all the same at the end. It's just you're accessing like an altered state of consciousness. And like once you're there, what is it that you're going to do with that information? And how is it that you're going to just bring it back and ground it?
Yeah, I think that's at the end of the day if there's anything I see that's dangerous or not useful is when either an experience happens and it's not grounded. It's that weekend retreat that gave you an aha moment, and then you go back to your usual program. And also when in these kind of states, when, for example, when I'm not able to navigate my dreams, or I'm noticing, wow, this is something I have no clue how to do, we have tools on how to do that. And so we can start to open up to that, even if it's something where we haven't done before. So I think people are often, we're not invited to play with enough of these tools to navigate these altered states. So I think it's a nice area to explore.
Yes. And even like what types of like, this is for me as well, like what type of like psychedelic or psychoactive I want to use or what type of experience I want to get into, because they're all very different and they will all allow you to navigate different like aspects of the self. Like, for example, like the mushrooms for me are gentle, they're so like they're softer, and like the way they act in my brain is by dissolving things. Like all of a sudden like it's something's there and all of a sudden it's not there anymore, and I'm like, okay, like what just happened?
And softly and gently.
And softly and gently, while maybe an ayahuasca for me it's more like a purging experience, so something comes up and then I purge, while as San Pedro, like I feel my heart just like opening up and just like, wow, it's very intense. And obviously because they act in different parts of the body, it's like it's natural that they would act as well, like differently. So yeah, so like even bufo, as we were talking about it before, for me it was a very intense experience because it was done under a context that for me wasn't safe because of due of how was like applied the medicine. And obviously it was an experience that I had to go through, but if I could go back and just like even have the tools to understand how to navigate that, or what type of setting I would have needed at that point, then my experience, I am sure that it would have been different. So that's kind of like even something as well very important for me, which is like setting before the experiences and what is it that I want.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in a second. But one of the things I wanted to say, what's interesting about, just to stay for a moment on the on working with the subconscious, is not knowing some of the methodologies, but knowing others better. Like I dabbled in meditation, I dabbled in breath work, and different things. But when I started to do all of that now, after taking plant medicine or after entering altered states, the synergy of those things, even as an amateur, was phenomenal. I have a sound healer friend, so I learned how to play the didgeridoo. just going and hearing good music. Even in my yoga class, I started getting more into the mantras, like feeling them. I'm like, holy crap, I don't know if
Yes.
something happened, but I feel this.
Yes.
So I think, yeah, being open to all this stuff, even the art, I'm like, oh, okay, it's not painting that was for me, but I met an artist who does sculpture, and I like a lot of gardening, and I was like, cool, I can make fun gardens. So all of that started to really come to life this last year or two when I started to work on integrating some of these psychoactives and non-psychoactives. The breath work this year took me, I guess, the first couple times that I've really done hour plus breath works with people on and not on psychedelics, and it's really incredible where you can get with just the breath.
Mm-hmm. And to add that, I think it's not either or, it's and. So it's like I'm doing work with like the plant medicine, but I'm also doing work in my dream state. And I'm
Yeah.
also doing work with like my art experiences that like integrating. And I'm also doing breath work every morning to just kind of like see what's coming up. So it's a lifestyle. It's like if you want to navigate these outer states of consciousness, I feel the more tools you have in your hand, the more you're able to navigate them and be like, oh, I can access this way, or I can like navigate this way, or I can do this. So it's kind of like really and all the tools necessary
Synergy, yeah.
to just create a safe space and a good environment to actually be able to shed whatever it is that you need to let go of and bringing forward whatever it is that you're calling in into your life.
I kind of feel like it's, oh, hold on, we muted you, Wayne. Let me unmute you.
No, my question was just, you're not as much into the microdosing as a larger dose, and then in that experience, you're talking about tools that help us reintegrate. Is that? Uh-huh.
We're actually going to get into both of those. Sue kind of jumped ahead for a moment, but when we looked at the type of psychoactives next, like when we looked at mushrooms, pausing there and going one by one, the mushroom is one that I find phenomenal to microdose. We did a course of that, looked at all the different integration tools, and that's one actually where very rarely do I take a large dose, and it's not something I use recreationally since I was a kid. So mushrooms is one we microdose, whereas ayahuasca and DMT, although people do microdose ayahuasca, that's one that we go once a year, whenever, for let's say ayahuasca. DMT is one that I think some people say you only need once in your life. I've done it twice, just because the first one I wasn't willing to let go fully. Like I was kind of too held on. But they're all different. The San Pedro and peyote as well. Those are ones that in microdose or normal dose, I think have beautiful effects.
Yeah, and I think that that's such a great question because, for example, in my case, I like to macrodose some medicines and I like to microdose some medicines. So, for example, as we were talking mushrooms, I like to microdose them because they work very well with like other medicines and the breath work and just allowing me to be here and now in this, like, even in this space, and allows me to like be more creative and enter into my flow and like like shed some other things. While the ayahuasca, I feel that even in the microdoses, I wouldn't do it during the day, but I would do it during the night. So I would do more like more dream work. So I feel that like each plant medicine, as I mentioned before, has to do with a specific moment of your life, and it can just like act on something specific that you need to work on. Like even cannabis, I am not very like, I was like not very particular of like using cannabis before, but I have actually been using it in specific occasions, and it's very interesting because like the psychoactiveness of it for me is as strong as an ayahuasca, but people use it, it's so used recreationally and like so common that everyone is just using it, that for me it loses the kind of like the being sacred, the sacredness of the plant. And so it doesn't give you all of the spectrum of the effects that you actually need. And then while using it in a different context, you get so much out of it that for me is just like, wow, it's incredible. So even just from that perspective, like when you really respect the plant and using it in the context that it should be used on, then it gives you so much more.
That's interesting too, because for example, the way I used to use cannabis, and up until a recent point, I used it a lot, and even frequently, you know, small doses, larger doses. And I never even thought of it as something that's like a plant medicine that's done in ceremony. And not for like, there are spiritual components, and you can connect to the energy of Maria and the plant, but also from the perspective of some of these traditions just did it so you didn't go and stand outside on your balcony and smoke, but you really sat and you meditated and you connected, and something, you know, bigger from that. So
yeah, and I assure you that the
yeah.
experience it's completely different. That if
Yeah.
you're just like outside and from your balcony just
Yeah,
smoking
sitting in.
that if you're like really connecting to the plant as a sacred spirit and being like, hey, what is it that you need to show me? The plant is just amazing.
And that's my one for years that I've used, I think, without being too conscious of it. And now actually only recently revisiting not using it at all, to see how all of this other stuff is, because it has so many effects also on the emotional body and other things. But I also wasn't dreaming because I was stoned for many years, you know, not to the point where, you know, I was still communicating and fine and normal, but yeah, if I want to have a lucid dream, maybe that's a place to start, to be more conscious before bed. So yeah, I think dosing wise, we put some examples of doses for psilocybin for people because that's the only one we've personally experienced and have had enough friends experience microdosing protocols where we're like, that's good, that works, there's data. So yeah, we also with psilocybin where a microdose could be anywhere from 0.1 and up. We were looking at 0.25, which is that point where it becomes slightly perceptual. We found that after microdosing for a period of time, if we were to reconnect with it and we wanted to feel it, even 0.25 we would really feel, you know. The larger doses that we have that people use during ceremony, that's already, I think, ceremonial grade and people doing it much more rarely.
Yeah, and I feel with the dosing as well, for me, it's also about experimentation. And I feel that for many people, it's that way as well. Because, like, for me, a point, like a 0.1, like, it's like, oh, I can still feel it. For some people, it's like they take it and they don't feel it. So I feel that it's also like, to what point do you need to feel this medicine? Do you not need to feel it? Like, how long are you going to do it for? And I see it in the case of my mom as well, that she is a hypersensitive being as well. And I like, well, she started microdosing with a 0.25, but for her it was life changing. It was like
a ceremony.
It was a ceremony day, so she couldn't even do any other things because she was like under the influence of the medicine. But as she was integrating as well, she was using all of the other tools that she had as a psychologist. So for her, really, the effect was like all together. It was like the whole package. It wasn't just one thing, but like the whole package.
And I think it's amazing. I guess when I grew up in America, everything was like you wanted a stronger everything, like a stronger pill, stronger this, stronger that. And so just being open to the fact that lighter doses of things and actually just chilling the body out to a stable level, the amount of caffeine we intake, when you do the ayahuasca cleanses or other cleanses and you eliminate a lot of the salts and caffeines and crap we put in, yeah, then after a week or a month of eating healthy, you take a tiny bit of any of these medicines and I assure they'll be felt.
Yeah, and I feel that that's part of like one of the most important things. It's the diet. Like so many people, they're like, oh, I'm depressed or I'm sad, but then you go and look at their diet, things as simple as like gluten, sugar, like many other like additives, like chemicals, things that we ingest into our body. I assure you that if you like do a really like good ayahuasca diet before even you're entering into the plant, you're like, oh my god, why do I feel so different?
Just the diet alone, you feel pretty good.
Just the diet alone is just like a life-changing experience. So for me, even integration should be like added with a specific diet, so you can be like, oh, I can feel this plant, I can feel the medicine.
Then it's really like how scientists do an experiment. You know, I studied a little bit in college. I took a course on holistic nutrition, and people indeed complain of a lot of things and take pharmaceuticals and take meds when they're not willing to make the base lifestyle changes, which doesn't matter how much ayahuasca or mushrooms or this or that. Like if you get the diet going and you get, even not going to extremes, but some of these basic things like cutting the sugars and the glutens and the things that really make the gut and the emotional system out of whack, it also will help understand what's going on with people who are integrating psychedelics, because they might think they're having emotional swings where a certain, I even
when
had,
it's food.
yeah,
It's
I
food
had
related.
I won't say the brand, but I had one of these vegan hamburgers. We had some friends over that were vegan, so we had a vegan barbecue, all good. Hamburger tasted delicious. But man, the next day I felt horrible. It was still processed food and I felt tired. And I felt like, I don't know, I felt a little anxious. And I think it's funny to see how a lot of it could just be food related, not.
Yeah, in my case,
Yeah.
it's soy. I can't eat soy, and if I eat soy, the next day I'm like a little bit like, ooh, like what happened? But I know that it's because I ate that, or I ate something that, like, I mean, I couldn't like really digest, and it's not like I'm sad. It's just something as simple as food can alter all your mood change, and you're like, oh my god, I'm depressed. No, you're not depressed. Your eating disorder is like really bad. You need to like eat better, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah, and also ahead of all of the ceremonies, that these traditional diets or many of the ceremonies, I think that's regardless very nice. So when we were talking about kind of the set and setting, yeah, having a good mindset, having a clean diet, clear intentions, safe environment, these kind of things, and good company, having good people with you, all of that I think plays together with
Mhm. With all of
dosing.
the other
Yeah.
things, I think it's part of the integrations, which is like people are like, oh, integrating after the experience, but how about before the experience? It's like I'm about to
Preparing.
preparing for the experience, if
That's the
that's
next one.
important as everything else.
Yeah, so let's maybe go into the before the
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Sorry, like I always
No,
like jump
great.
in.
Yeah, so before the journey, and some of these things are classic, but even just reminding myself of the ones that I really like, and doing them over and over. Intention, just having a clear intention. I used to have these big ones like intention, like shift life, da da da. Even small intentions now, like really particular intentions, has been awesome just to kind
Mhm.
of break up the usual intention setting one.
Yes.
You want to, what's the next
The
one?
set.
The set.
Yeah, I feel like how is my mindset going into an experience? I feel that it's so important because like sometimes I've entered into plant medicine without actually needing to enter into plant medicine, and I feel that that's like when like things can just like go a little bit like okay, I didn't need to do this. And so like just like having that mindset of like, oh, I really need to do this experience, or
Or
not,
a friend invited me
or
and
a friend
nudged me.
invited me and I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe. And I really didn't need it. So,
Yeah, and
it's like,
also a lot of times when I'm not in the right mindset, a lot of crazy shit going on in life or work or family, maybe that's not the time to disappear and go do ayahuasca for 4 days because I'm going to return back into. So yeah, having a clear mindset too for me is knowing like, okay, I got some time to do this, or I'm in a headspace, like
yeah,
everything's taken
or I'm
care of.
preparing for this, and then
Yeah.
I'm doing it like, okay, I'm doing it because it's time for me to do it. And I know that after the experience, it's not like, oh, my life just changed. No, my life like changed, but now I need to like integrate all of those lessons and bring them back into reality. So it's like, okay, I'm quitting my job. Perfect. But then do know that that may be a possibility. Are you ready to do that as well?
Yeah, because we also, I feel like, especially because Sue and I have lived in Costa Rica for a while. So we see this classic thing where it's a person usually could be from any country, often from the US, that just quit their job, changing their life, sometimes a relationship shift. And there are these massive swings that often happen with people who take psychedelics too. They come here, they do ayahuasca. Life doesn't have to be a massive swing, but if someone has that intention that they really want to shift and reboot their life and move countries or quit their job, that's great. But I've seen people make stupid choices like that because they were in an altered state of conscious because they didn't prepare. If you can go in with a clear head space saying, I want to shift this, how I work, with who I work, where I work, awesome. If it's something that comes from this rush of ayahuasca in Peru and all of a sudden your life is shifting, 90% of the chance maybe, or 80% that's right, but for many people maybe they didn't need that. And that's why with a lot of these integration programs, like we've been meeting a lot of friends who haven't had the best experiences. They're like, oh, everyone said it would be like this and it was like that. Or, so
yeah, because maybe they weren't prepared. Also, like for me, it's important to kind of like, it depends on the experience that I'm gonna go under. But like, for example, like if I'm gonna do ayahuasca, do it with the respect that it deserves, and go into the jungle and do the diet and just kind of like go under that experience. If I am going to do mushrooms as well, like, I mean, it depends on like
it doesn't, and again, I've seen people go upstate New York or wherever it is into it doesn't have to be deep in the jungle, but to do it in a way that's respectful,
yes,
in the right setting. I have to unmute you 1 second, Wayne. How do I do that? Right here? Oh, there.
Yeah, no, wait, you're on mute.
Wayne, there you go. Boom.
I did it at Tuxedo Park at upstate New York a couple of weeks ago, which was the turn of the century, Robert Barron's, whatever. It was quite an experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, the settings are great. But I feel like any setting that I feel good in, I've actually had people tell me that they've done ayahuasca in Manhattan, and it was a beautiful thing. And so that's cool, to each his own. But as long as it's a good setting, at least with the people you're with and nice space, I think that's a good one.
Alignment. What can I bring further into alignment? So I feel that this is very important. This is like, okay, so like, what am I calling for? And like after the experience, it's like, oh, this happened, but now how can I make the shifts happen? So it's like, oh, I'm behaving this way, but all my life is like set in a certain way that I still like have those urges to behave that way. So how can I just like bring into alignment and be like, oh, I learned this lesson, now I can just like put it into practice.
I think you nailed it at the end there. It's like when you get the certain lessons at the end, if it's putting it into practice and aligning ourselves to the things we're seeing, because at the end, it's a voice somewhere in your head or in your soul or beyond that's saying, hey, like this shit needs to change or this needs to adjust. Okay, so what can I tweak? Almost like tuning a guitar. What can I tweak, clean up? What things can I let go? I think these three kind of go together, but the letting go, I always feel like, is cleaning up the computer, or the apartment. But there's a lot of shit we have to let go. And I think life is a constant letting go list that never ends. But with that comes calling forth other stuff that we want, peace, free time, love, whatever. And then aligning those things so that we have the things we want and less of the things we don't want.
Exactly. Yeah. Calling forth, what would I like to call forth for at this time? So I feel that that's also like bringing into alignment, but what is it that really I want to bring in after like even the experience? So I'm having travel with this, but like, what is it that I'm calling forth?
Courage to deal with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus like just thinking like, okay, I want to call forth this solution. No, maybe I need courage and energy to do something.
Yeah, and I feel like the medicine will give you whatever it is that you need. Like one time I remember I went to an ayahuasca ceremony and I was feeling very tired the days before, and I really asked it for like, oh, I really want to be healthy in my body. And I actually finished an ayahuasca ceremony, and then I went to a festival and I danced for 3 days. And
you called forth energy.
I called forth the energy, and that was really good. That was my movement integration.
Yeah, and also calling forth the clean experience, one that I'm not tired. Sometimes like before I go to something, I'm like, I hope this is like, I just want to get good rest on this one. I'm like, oh, cool, it ended at 12 p.m. Or it doesn't have to be calling forth these massive things either, but just energy and feeling good too. Yeah, and if I also like, I feel like it's a good time in an altered state to manifest something.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, so just feeling that instead of calling forth like money or this or that, like, okay, what do I need it for? I'm calling forth a home for my family, land, I want to buy food. I don't want to worry about, I want to travel, whatever it is. Looking at calling those things forth in an altered state, especially during breath work and in different altered states, is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like if you have a clear intention and you are completely coherent to what you're asking, and then you are completely aligned, then the things will happen. They will manifest. Because, like, sometimes that's when we ask for something, but we have doubts. That's when it doesn't happen. But when we are in an altered state of consciousness, we are just very present to what we are feeling. So if we allow ourselves to just kind of like, yes, I'm calling forward this, and I have it very present in my mind, then it's like all of my body is calling forth that experience.
Yeah, and I just did some work with Joe Dispenza's book, The Becoming Supernatural, and his meditations, and I noticed the science of that is incredible because even in Napoleon Hill's old books, when they all talked about manifesting, the emotion was the key part of it. So yeah, if you're in a psychedelic or altered state and your emotions are elevated, wow, it's kind of a phenomenal time to combine intention plus emotion to create that physical
And heart
reality.
coherence.
Yeah,
Because, like, for example, with the peyote, I feel that having heart coherence, it's so helpful
Incredible.
to manifest whatever it is that I want. Because my heart is just open, and so I am like calling forward like all these things. So like
Yeah.
my resonance field is just gonna like actually like expand and call
Yeah.
it in.
I couldn't believe that too when people talked about peyote being heart opening, and I'm like, okay. Literally, like I felt my chest, like I felt physically my heart open, and energetically, I was like, wow, I feel the things that I feel with my heart open. Love, the same way as like when I'm playing with a puppy or my mom hugs me. I'm like, this is heart opening. And then also, I recognize with those kind of ones, especially, I was calling forth a little bit of yeah, kind of this manhood or growth, and all of a sudden, wow, that medicine really created that. I came out of there and I was like, whoa, they do call this a masculine medicine for a reason, versus ayahuasca being feminine, the peyote and the San Pedro. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see that being called forth. Um, yeah, and since we talked about feelings, the one thing I think that's important from a psychological level is to really analyze. I use a journal often, but to really analyze my feelings and emotions before, during, and after. During, I'm not journaling, but I try to explore my feelings. After, I try to see what I felt. Again, because I think we were speaking earlier with Wayne about when you don't have those. Like when you don't have those crazy visual trips to the end of the astral time, what you sometimes have is a lot of feelings that come up and some stuff you sit with and see. And then unpacking that is incredible. That's better than a trip to the psychiatrist.
Yeah, and I feel that feelings alongside with visions, memories, remembrances, that's what's important. It's like, oh, it's not about traveling to the astral plane and having like this, like, no, okay, so maybe right now it's time to shed what feelings are coming up before, what feelings were coming like up, and like after as well. Like, oh, why am I feeling this?
And how do I integrate
And
it?
how do I integrate
what is
into
there
my
to
life?
forgive?
And like even like after I'm doing the work, it's like what visions are coming up with those feelings. So maybe I remember something that happened in the past, and I'm like, ooh, this feeling is associated with this specific memory that now I need to heal. And that could be the whole journey. That just that, it's as powerful as like.
I think she pretty much for me nailed healing in a nutshell, because no matter what kind of spiritual healer or non-spiritual healer I went to, they always got me back to some past memory or trauma that I had to somehow unlock, unfreeze my younger self, revisit, feel the emotion, let go. I mean, you name it, like I feel like it's all in that realm of finding those things, looking at those memories and feelings.
Yeah, even when you go into the astral plane, like all these people, like I feel that sometimes the plants are just giving you distractions because you're like, I can't really deal with this, so
I'm gonna go
show
fly
you.
to
I'm gonna go
Pluto.
exactly. I'm gonna
Which
go.
is cool too.
It's amazing, not to say no, but like for me, that's like also like the way the plants work. It's like, oh, they're distracting you until you actually get to do the real work that you were there to do. But some memories are so painful that it's very hard to unlock, and that's why you need a really safe and loving container, because then like you are willing to open up and to let those things go. If you don't feel safe enough, it doesn't matter what experience you're joining in, you won't be able to open up to let go and release whatever it is that it is, because you don't feel safe.
Yeah, yeah, it's a hard thing to feel fully safe and to let go and to allow feeling to flow.
And I feel like even some of the doctors, the way they treat you when you have a disease is just like, or when you have like something that's going on, is just like they just see you as like a subject. So they don't treat you as like with love and respect. Like some of them do. But I mean, there is so much more to healing than just like taking medicine. No, there's
Prescription.
and prescription.
Well, I love that. Yeah, and also with plant medicine, Sue made a joke to me once, which is, people take medicine when they need medicine. So if you don't need it, don't take it. Or don't take as much of it. If you do need it, have a very clear work you're doing. I've had intentions.
That's why it's called medicine.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I mean, like I feel like I've had times where I've wanted to just enjoy, like with LSD or a certain experience where I was like, I'm just going to enjoy this. This is not for the typical type of work I do.
And I feel that that's something very interesting that you're mentioning the LSD. Because, like, for example, like the plant medicines, they're plants, they're spirits.
Yeah.
So that's something that is interesting. They have spirits. The LSD, for me, it's slightly different because it's not a plant.
Yeah, it's derived from.
It's derived from
it's
like
a derivative.
Exactly, but it's more like there's like collective consciousness of it because a lot of people are putting information of like
that's
medicine.
an interesting thing. Not to go too far into the woo woo, but like I don't want to. There are many people who will attest to LSD and the synthetic world being just as powerful as the plant medicine world. And I, until the last couple of years, didn't really understand how important in Bufo, feeling the actual energy of the toad. Like there is something there with ayahuasca, feeling the energy of that vine. It guides you. There's some kind of intelligence. I don't want to go too far, but there's something there that's helping you through this. And with the LSD and others, they're incredible experiences, but almost like you need to have a serious tool belt because you don't have that guide there as much. You're the guide.
And I feel that that's something that is like as well super important. Who's guiding you in the journey? That's something that we haven't talked about, but for me, that's like, oh my God, that's like key. It's like who is guiding me into that journey, because the person who is guiding me is carrying me into the frequency of whatever it is that I need to heal. Yeah. And like some people, like, I mean, it's just like
shouldn't sit with some people.
You shouldn't sit with some people, and that's as much as it is. You shouldn't sit with some people because like I always look, and this is something that is like coherent, which is like I look at the person who is serving me medicine and what kind of lifestyle do they have. Are they coherent with what they're serving and how they're living their lifestyle? Truth, yeah. And are they in their truth
and integrity?
That's like, I mean, it's like you can't go to a shaman and then the shaman is just like, I mean, it's just like a
alcoholic or something.
Yeah. Like I've watched some movies where like the shaman is like chicken fighting in the Amazon in the jungle, and then the person sits with the shaman. It's like dark energy, and I'm like, of course you're going to someone who is like putting the chickens to fight. I mean, that's just like it's like it's common sense. So I mean, just the guide, it's so important because like for me, it has to be in coherence with like the lifestyle that I want to embody.
And I think that's there are the guided types of ceremonies and experiences. There are also the complete opposite where I have a relative who will do this alone, just likes to put on an eye mask and some headphones and have an experience in a controlled, good setting in his home. Wife's with the kids. He knows he's safe and he feels comfortable. Mm-hmm. So, there's the two sides of it. I do think if someone's doing ayahuasca or one of these traditional lineage medicines, there's an important part, which is choosing the right place and the right guide and all of that. And if someone's choosing to do it at home and really go inward and explore, let's say with a psilocybin dose, there's a ton of things one has to imagine safety-wise. You don't want to be in an unsafe container, but if that's what you're into, and many people are, that's cool. But then you have to have yourself a series of some kind of guiding principles, I think that help.
Yeah, I feel that the most important thing here is like, one, choose wisely who you're sitting with and be like, yes, I really like, I enjoy this person. I really resonate. I feel very safe. Like the basics.
Yeah.
just like super like basic things. And then like if you're doing it by yourself, also like, I mean, be in a safe container in your
Yeah.
house, in your space, nothing's really gonna happen to you. I mean, it's just like you're just gonna really go inward.
And I like that, by the way.
Mhm.
We've had experiences with friends in homes where we just feel super good. Like it's a group of small friends. It's not, I've had the opposite where I went to a real traditional experience here in Costa Rica in the jungle, and I didn't feel like it was a good setting. I was uncomfortable. I was getting bit by mosquitoes. I felt like I was proving something to myself because I was deep in the jungle. But really, I couldn't do a lot of the work simply because I was getting bit by mosquitoes and in my head. And I don't know, I just wasn't
Maybe that
comfortable.
was the experience.
Yeah, and okay, that was my work. It probably was, I get it. But like on the other hand, too, like we've done ones where I felt really good that have been awesome. And so yeah, so let's jump. We talked about the health and the sleep and the water intake, but again, just in terms of like the last part of this pre-journey, having good rest and good water and nutrition, I think, is critical. It really changes the effects of psychedelic experiences quite drastically.
The diet we talked about. So I feel that that's like super important.
Yeah, and just to couple it with the before, we look at the after almost the same way, but through a different lens. So the after, obviously, we review the feelings that came up during the experience, and then how I'm feeling right now. A lot of times, I think I go backwards in time to say, oh, how did I feel during the experience? Cool. I journal that. I love to write that on in my journal. But then also, how am I feeling right now? And I do a body scan. I literally, like, some of the tools in my tool belt that I think are simple ones that I love is just to sit down and literally scan from my toes up my body. It doesn't take me long. Like, how the hell do I physically feel? And then how do I feel inside here? Like, what's going on? Anything coming up? I feel a little anxious. I feel this. Yeah.
And I feel the body scan, it's like, it's really important as well, because it's like, oh, where was I feeling all of the energy? Like what parts of myself actually need some like movement, or why were they there? Or maybe like my heart was hurting, or maybe, like I was feeling something in a specific part of the body related again to some memories or related to some organ. And so that's even with the magic starts.
That's a great one, by the way.
Related to organs. Like that's where the magic starts, because that's if you place your intention. And for example, I do a lot of qigong, and that's my morning practice, which is like bringing as well energy to the organs to feel that they're healthy. And like sometimes, like as well, just while you're in medicine, like just analyzing which organs need more help from myself, and then just like bringing the energy forward to that space will allow me to heal whatever it is that I need to heal.
That's an interesting thing too, because a lot of this stuff about feeling in the body, especially in Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, it's related to organs. And also in psychology, when memories come up, sometimes healers and psychologists say, where do you feel it? I feel it here, a block in my throat, never spoke up to my father, whatever it is. All of that stuff is interrelated. So doing the physical body scan and seeing where the emotional things are connected. Then people who do the practice of chakra work and Joe Dispenza's work, blessing of all these energy
centers.
Yeah, then you could be like, okay, wow, like I have a lot of stuff here, and I'm gonna like really. Some people say bless my throat. Okay, I'm gonna focus on my throat and really give it some love, or on my chest and my solar plexus down here.
I feel like part of it is like looking the body as a whole, or like all of us, or like the human as a whole, which is like integrating yourself, which is like becoming more whole. So it's not like just like, oh, going to a specific part. No, it's like really how can I holistically integrate all of these aspects that we're talking about, which is all related.
Which is, by the way,
whole.
Yeah, which is, I think, most of the people I speak to on some form of spiritual journey or plant medicine journey, it's that journey to becoming whole. When we said alignment earlier, all these many words for saying the same things, Maslow's actualization, but it's becoming whole, feeling holistically good, that we're mind, body, spirit aligned.
Yeah, and I love in alchemy as well that, like, I mean, it's just the study of the universe as a whole. So everything is interrelated, and everything is like communicating within like each other. And that's how I feel about the symbols. So like if everything is communicating with each other, because like It's like, ooh, so what are the symbols that are coming up? What are the colors that are coming up? What are the things that are coming up? What are the images, and how is everything interconnected? And those are my lessons that I'm seeing after, because
Yeah.
I'm creating my own reality.
By the way, that's an important point, which sometimes that's why I love journaling about it, because sometimes I don't see the pattern till later. So I'll write down, okay, saw this symbol or something Sue said. I might not know why the hell I saw it and why I'm feeling this, but then later I start to see this like connection between all of it. Sometimes I'm blown away, like, I guess like beginner's mind. I'm like, holy crap, this is all interconnected. And I'm like, of course it's all interconnected. But
Yeah, like for example, like I feel that in ayahuasca, I get a lot of visions of animals or like spirit animals, and I like see them coming in and whatever. But then what I see, then I analyze it, and it's like, what does this like mean? How does it's a representation of my life? Like, where does it appear often? What is the magic that I need to integrate, or like the synchronicity? So it's all really interrelated, and I feel that if we notice those patterns, then that's like when the magic really happens, because then you are becoming aware of what you're
Right.
seeing and what you're creating in your reality.
Yeah, so the next one on the after the journey list was the magic. So I love to track the synchronicities and magic in life that happens. Some of it pretty subtle, some of it could be a little more, non-subtle. But yeah, even running into certain people, holy crap, this person gave me a call, or I keep seeing hummingbirds, so I went on Google to see why the hell I'm seeing hummingbirds, and it was like change is happening. Cool, they're organizing my life. So yeah, seeing different things, I'm like, okay, let me just start to track the synchronicities. And then one crazy thing that's interesting about tracking magic and tracking synchronicities, we give a little magic tracker, like a synchronicity tracker in the PDF that we'll send everybody. But yeah, you can start to track them, and even just seeing the fact that you have a lot of synchronicities, not necessarily which type, it's a great gauge of how much in flow state you are. Like, and in the spiritual sense, flow; in the non-spiritual sense, like how much shit's going good in life and how much it's chaotic and broken and not really working. So yeah, we love to track that, and also look at what inspirations are coming up, what ideas, just
Yeah, like
starting to journal these things.
even with synchronicities, it's like what feelings are often coming up.
That's a great
Like,
one.
I
Love
mean,
that.
like that's something as simple, but for example, like if sadness is coming up often, it's like, oh, what am I grieving?
Yeah.
It's like when you start like looking at the things that are just like, oh, this is so simple, this is so easy, like what feelings are coming up? If I'm angry, like
Yeah.
why am I angry all the time? And that could be just like a whole awareness, and just specifically that can change your life.
Yeah, what's amazing with plant medicine in that regard is, you start to recognize that you're having an active dialogue with life. And so the synchronicities and the things that are appearing, that is it. Like, that's the whole point of it in general, which is to start to monitor this external conversation internally. That's alchemy, how your internal world affects matter, how the non-physical affects the physical. So yeah, synchronicities, messages, magic, billboard, whatever. That's the way that life is communicating back to you, your reality. So we like to actually have a method to track that. Some people could do it in their head. That's cool. I love a good journal and a piece of paper.
I love to art about it.
You love to do art about it. By the way, that's so great. We're so
Yeah.
different. I'm like, I like to
Yeah.
write about it and psychoanalyze myself. She likes to do.
I love to just draw it and see what am I drawing. Well, why am
Yeah.
I drawing this often? I mean, it's like for every person is so different. But for example, like creative arts for me are important because they're like an expression and like an expressive outlet of what's going on. And so it's like really like it's not just in my head. Like
Yeah.
now it's out of my head and into the paper, whatever
Yeah.
it is. So it could be singing, it could be dancing, it could be movement, it could be like whatever your expression
Even just
is.
colors, by the way.
Yeah.
I suck at art, so I just take some colors and start to mess around,
Even what colors you're using, why
Yeah.
are you using those colors? Like, I mean, I've seen so many people just like on the exercises that we do, like use a specific palette of colors, and I'm like, wow, very interesting that you're using this specifically.
Yeah.
Everything has a symbol and a meaning. It's not there by like any chance. It's just when you are aware of it, then you are conscious.
Sue sees that a lot with her branding clients and people that do kind of like traditional corporate branding work where they're choosing colors and things. And I didn't realize how related it was to their personalities or to the, even now, like this month, orange kept coming up for me a lot. And we looked up orange and Sue told me more about that color. It's actually a lot of the stuff I'm working on and healing and the chakra I'm working on and everything. I was like, holy crap. Okay, this is exactly what's happening in my life. This is a color and this is related to.
And I also feel that when we enter into the psychedelic realm, we understand it. As you were saying before, Wayne, it's like, oh my God, I've never seen an piece of art that it was like I really well understood it. But the thing is, like, we enter back into the real world and we forget. And that's why integration, it's so important, because we forget, we shut down, and then we're back into that state of like expansiveness and or like expansion, and we remember. And I was like, oh, I remembered this from my last ayahuasca ceremony, but I didn't remember it all of this month because like it was locked in a part of my brain that I couldn't get access to.
And breaking down what we're seeing in those paintings, like it is a combination to our brain of colors, some visual form, something that's giving us a memory, a canal, something. So all those things coming together create this data that the brain processes. It's pretty miraculous. Yeah, and I think integrating it into that waking life is the true genius. Meaning, you can go and sit in a monastery and drink ayahuasca or do something for the rest of your life, but the person walking on the street in the middle of a city, dealing with their shit and integrating, the out there world and the regular world. That to me is a real example of, I think, an aligned person. Not to say that either extreme is bad, but just being able to integrate all this stuff and be a normal person again and live a normal life. You don't.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many uses, like everything for me, nature is designed the way it is. So it's like, just like acknowledging what are your gifts is really powerful, and just being able to just like even share that.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of times our work are not our gifts. So being able to share something that I love, like personally, I'm like, oh, okay, this is something I got to do. So it's kind of fun.
There is one movie that I was like, remember, and it's like maybe off topic, but like it's about this woman that actually takes a pill or whatever, and she starts Lucy enhancing like her brain, and like if you see her like, oh, brain at 5% potential, brain at 10% potential. So that's what I feel like you enter in a psychedelic state, your brain is like enhanced capacity, and so you're like being able to do you're using it better. And then when we go back out of the psychedelic state, it's like, oh, I'm like half using my brain.
Which is why, by the way, in the beginning when we were talking about the breath work and the meditation and all the other things that can get you to an altered state, it's not an either or. So like this morning, I didn't wake up and take mushrooms, but I did some breath work, I did some meditation, and I was in that altered state for 20-30 minutes. And I did my work there, cleaned up house, and then got along my day. What is it? Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry up the mountain.
After enlightenment, chop wood,
carry up the mountain. Still got to do the same stuff day in and day out.
So. It's just a way on how you like affront like that life. So it's like, oh my God, like before it was like, this was so heavy because I needed to do it. I still need to do it, but it's like, I do it in a different way. So it's not like, oh, my life changed completely. It's just the way I see life change completely.
Beautiful. Different pair of glasses. Yeah. So I think some of the things in this after journey list we'll run through because we kind of talked about them, but the lessons, if some lessons came up, it just sucks to have to repeat lessons. So might as well bite the bullet and handle it.
I feel that like when I do work, like personal, like healing work with some of my clients, like I see that they repeat the same lessons all over again. And it is the same lesson. It doesn't change over a year because I see them over like, like a specific amount of time.
I read my journals and I see the same shit that I'm working on for 20 years.
Exactly. And maybe that's your one lesson that you came to like embrace in this lifetime. But the more aware you are of it, then the more you like, the less you have to really work for it and be like, okay, finally I'm integrating this. I'm like doing the work and just like allowing, surrendering to my change.
Oh, I love that.
Mhm.
Surrender, letting go, forgiving.
Surrendering to the change that I actually need to do.
Yeah, and forgiving whatever part of myself I need to forgive in that process.
Mhm.
I think a lot of it boils down to that.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like some of the people who constantly do these plant medicines are
Or
not
psychedelics,
integrating,
yeah.
or psychedelics, whatever, are
Yeah.
not integrating because they just repeat the same things all over again. So it's
Same
the same
loops.
loops,
Yeah,
like
same
same
loop.
loops. And so you're like, okay, so what is it the work that you're doing? And that's when you realize that the
Yeah.
plant is a medium to go somewhere, but the actual work is yours.
Yeah, in fact, I
Mhm.
might go kind of far to say the fact that I think a lot of people overuse plant medicine and even perpetuate these same loops, and they go into these extremes. And yeah, if you don't change some shit up, you're going to be stuck in the same loop over and over.
Mhm. So there's like
Hopefully
the
in this
fine line.
lifetime. Yeah, there is quite a fine line.
There is a fine line between like I am doing the work and I actually really need this versus like, oh, I just want
This
to
is my
do it
crutch,
every
yeah.
weekend and I just want to go and I just want to go and I just want to go.
Or even, yeah, and it's also an easy way to look at personal development and spiritual growth, which is okay, once a month or once a quarter, I have this plant medicine experience and it's going to do the work for me. So if you're not taking the lessons and applying it in your life, plant medicine is not going to do work for you, and it's not some gateway to spirituality that's an auto. Yeah, you can have an enlightening experience and feel the oneness, and that could change your entire life, but otherwise.
And you can just spend the rest of your life integrating that one experience and actually like having to repeat it
And
again.
by the way, that happened to my yoga teacher, an old guy, not on plant medicine, in a deep meditation of 9 hours, something crazy too. It was an extreme, but he had that altered state, oneness with God thing, and it changed his life forever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's cool. It doesn't have to. It's just a lot easier on sometimes with an ally.
And I feel that this like trauma release, the trauma release is really important because, as we were mentioning before, if the container is not safe, then I mean it's really hard that you're going to be able to release your trauma. And if you're not feeling safe in that container, you're going to gain more trauma than what you actually needed to release. So I mean, it's all like.
One of my friends in Mexico is a PhD in psychedelic studies and a psychologist. She, like, the trauma release is the biggest thing she works on, and I'm like, oh, I guess she just has like patients who have a lot of emotional things going on. But like, she's like, no, like I have a few extreme cases where there was abuse and etc. But mostly it's regular people with deep traumas that they're starting to see come up. Simple thing that I saw some an image of my dad putting me into, like, telling me to go into the ocean and be a man. That ended up being a bigger trauma than I thought. My whole life I was trying to prove myself to my dad. I'm like, oh man, that's crazy. I can't believe this. I didn't see it as a deep trauma. We had a great relationship most of our life, but yeah, there was some stuff. So yeah, starting to we will get Lily into the room. And we got someone joining us here. Hi, Lily. Welcome. Yeah, so we're going to continue. Lily, if you missed any of this, we'll send you the recording after for the first part. But we're just discussing trauma release and going into some of the stuff that comes up during an experience. One thing I wanted to say about that is all the, like, people talk about bad trips or tough experiences and all that. I'm really grateful for them somehow. And I think having a gratitude for anything that happens. Of course, I'm grateful if I had a beautiful journey and I saw something incredible, but I'm also grateful for the tough ones,
of course,
because
they're learning experiences.
Yeah.
They're learning experiences. I'm like, of course, like everything in your life is a learning experience, but also it's good to know about like the guided protocols that we're giving as well. It's just like such a simple things, but with such a power that can change like forever an experience.
Yeah, and going into it with some of that foresight, post-sight, let's move on to visual symbols.
So yeah, I think we've talked about the visual symbols before, but for me, it's like,
I need this list, by the way, because I'm not an artistic person. For those who are, all of this looks very simple, but I like having this list because it gives my rational brain something to look out for. So maybe we'll go over some
Yeah,
of these colors we talked about.
so as we were talking before, like the subconscious mind communicates after, like, I mean, you're in the outer state of consciousness. So everything is like expanded. So you really understand things. Like you're like, oh, I really understand why he was drawing this or why he was going through this. But then when that stops, you kind of like close that field again and you go into your normal self and you forget. But then the subconscious mind keeps talking to you in forms, in colors, in shapes, in images, in visions, in your dreams, in animals, in appearances, in places. So that's why if you start noticing some of these little things, then that's the point where you're like, oh, maybe I've been seeing this for a while. And it's been for a reason. And then it's like when I'm in the outer state, I know why exactly, because everything makes sense. But then I forget again. So that's what the subconscious mind is trying to tell you again. It's like, oh, okay, how can you integrate this into your life? I remember like this one, after one ayahuasca ceremony that I had, after I had very like violent dreams, and I'm like, why am I having this like specific violent dreams? And it was just like fears coming up for me. So my subconscious mind during my ceremony was telling me something, then I forgot, and then it kept coming back in my dreams. So while I was doing my work, it was like I would be just afraid even to go back to sleep. So it's like, wow, you know, like how can I even release those fears? So then my subconscious mind doesn't have to process that much information, and I can rest. And I can actually
resting
rest.
is nice.
Yeah, and I can actually rest because like even for the people who I feel that have done like so much plant medicine, maybe the dream world, it's like an actually like amazing tool to keep going back to that state and being like, oh, why am I seeing this? Why am I dreaming this? Because that's when the brain is processing all the information, and it's kind of like like organizing it and just kind of like, ooh. So even what types of dreams I'm having, that's a great place to start and seeing how is my day, or like how is like this part of my life that I'm in right now.
And just to take one step back there on the dream stuff, I had a different situation because I didn't dream for a while. So like many people, I wasn't getting good sleep. My mind was cluttered with so many things that I couldn't have these beautiful visions and dreams and lucid dreaming. So also being able to kind of do that work to declutter, and to prepare yourself also just for simple deep rest. That's why I think it's really nice then when you're rested and relaxed, you could start to really see some of this stuff come up.
And I feel that there's something very important that I recently discovered, and it's like when I enter into a different realm and then I come back, but I didn't process all the information that was given to me in that state, that's when I can't rest. But I've noticed that when I go into that state and I can process it all, like what I mean is like my energy moved, that I shifted, I knew what was going on, and then like my trip ends and I feel extremely rested. Like I feel like extremely good.
You don't
and I'm
have
like,
the bags under your eyes.
I don't have my bags under my eyes, like nothing really, like I feel, and then I go to that day and I dream and there's nothing in my dream worlds because I process all the information. So I feel that even those like slight kind of like information pieces about even not dreaming, being rested, it's like, oh,
especially with things like ayahuasca too.
I processed all of it.
There's times where I felt very well rested in ayahuasca, very good after that I finished. It was a good container. They closed it up. Everything felt good, like it was closed, it was clean, and afterwards I was able to sleep well.
And you were rested.
Yeah.
And you were rested. But I've also had those experiences where I go and then I feel so tired the next day. And maybe
what the hell are you integrating? You're like,
I'm like, I don't even know what I'm integrating. But also like energetically, we are sharing information field with so many other people. That's why when you go into an ayahuasca ceremony, it's like, I mean, if the energy is just like really dispersed, it can actually, for me, it's like, oh, I'm like, I don't really want to go and say, that's the set and setting.
By the way, from a spiritual and non-spiritual perspective, like from non-spiritual, it's just the people you're with that you feel good about. From a spiritual perspective, all these people are open and all their stuff's coming up. So depends on who you want to be with and where, and who the person holding the space is, that they're able to contain that from physically making sure people are all good to energetically.
And like one thing that's like even coming up recently, that's why the guide is so important, because the guide will allow to kind of like keep that container safe, close the container. And that's why also like, I mean, the shamans who have been training for many years, they know what's happening. They know what's coming in, what type of energy is moving through that space. And it's not like even for me, it's like, yes, I can see it. It's like it is there. It is like there's so many things about this world that we don't understand.
She sees it, I don't, by the way. Like she physically sees this stuff. I don't very often. So it's very cool for me to like, also in our partnership, it's really fun because I'm like, okay, I want to understand that and I'm open to it, but now help me get there, you know?
So, so that's even super interesting, because like once you see it, you know it's there, so you know that there are so many things that you need to clear out, or maybe like, you know, like maybe the space wasn't held in a really like strong way, and some, you know, like something just came up. So, you know, there's so many types of experiences, but you have to be open to all of those possibilities.
And that's part of letting go and surrendering too, like more and more. I saw like we had one experience in Santa Teresa where we had like an elderly woman for the first time let go to the fact that all of this stuff is real and a lot of this stuff like she can accept. And you know, it was really awesome to see it. And I feel like it's at any age, any time. Like my parents are just starting to meditate. I'm just getting open to looking at some of these things. But like the animal one was interesting. I kept seeing a bear, and a bear is brave and a bear is this. So I had to set my boundaries and stop getting walked all over in a certain area of my life. Okay, that's pretty cool. I saw the bear. I had someone like Sue who explained to me what a bear means, but otherwise I would have just wrote that off, that I saw like a cool visual of a bear, like, whoa, man, I had a big trip. I saw a bear, whatever.
And even from a psychobiological perspective, I can tell you why that is. It's because like you're awakening codes in your DNA, which allow you to keep at that strength and like bring forward that information that you're needing for that specific part of your life. So that's the interesting part about the science behind it, which is like, oh, we are just activating parts of ourselves stored in our body. And I'm
that's
like,
incredible.
wow,
I didn't even know about
what?
psychobiology until I met Sue and her mother. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. All of these things, animal spirits and totems. There's actual animal DNA in our DNA.
Because we share DNA with all the
because we share DNA with all the species
in the planet. So we're just awakening that. And for me, I was like,
wow.
wow.
Yeah, so
like,
awakening the tiger could literally be awakening some aspect of some DNA strand that's
exactly, that it's like engraven in you. And that's why they even talk about the spirit animals. And like we could just like have so much fun even talking about like going deep into even that conversation. But what I feel is just like integrating those things means that, which is like the more aware you are of what you're seeing and the more conscious you are of what's happening, the more you can actually expand your world and be like, oh, I surrender to all of this.
And what's cool is I don't feel you need a specific type of education or guidebook in that process. Like if you actually just sit and watch, like I saw a hummingbird without having to understand what the magical symbolism of the hummingbird was. I see this really active bird that's like moving around. And in that case, it was a sign to me that I'm moving at a super fast rate, like a hyper fast rate. So I was like, okay, I'm seeing this hummingbird and that's how I was. In some cases, the hummingbird shows me some good messages. In that case, it was slow down a bit, chill out. So looking at it in many ways too, I think it's nice. We also have on the list plants. People, sometimes a certain plant will come up, like cilantro. It's a heavy metal detoxer. So I started seeing it all over my lawn, and I know I have like some issues of heavy metals and mercuries. So these things actually physically appear in the day-to-day. So just being aware of them is pretty cool. And people is an obvious one. We put it on the list, but
maybe not so obvious. It's like this person just keeps appearing in my life, and I'm like, why are they there? What is it that they're there to teach me? It's just like for a period of time, there was a person who was appearing in my life, but I didn't even know them, and it kept like showing up on conversations of friends, in my Instagram, in my places, and I'm like, why do you keep showing up in my life? And then I met him. And I was like, oh, that's why you kept showing up in my life. But then it was like a sign that I needed to meet him.
Yeah, and certain people who bring up certain stuff, or just examples, like, oh wow, that person's super healthy, I should start to run more. It's like simple stuff like that, or bad examples. There are people that I see after that I'm like, oof, okay, I don't want to be like that, and like this person showing up to remind me that, you know, sometimes families.
Yeah,
But
even
yeah,
with families, like I've been needing to have this like conversation with this family person, and it's like it's just keep coming up. So you know, it's like it's all relative,
yeah,
like what you're like needing at that moment.
that moment.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we put we're gonna send you guys this PDF, but you could also do it in your like anywhere in your ledger journal. But I like to actually methodically track these things. One, they could be like I put things like meditate, water, like they could be simple things, but also you could start to write if there's something that comes up, an emotion, a visual symbol, and you start to track how much it comes up each day. It's amazing what a little data that's not that complicated. It's a little check mark, and you could start to see what things are related to what. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. So whether they're simple things or whether they're kind of deeper things, habits, you know, synchronicities, we track them. Um, and also ideas. If ideas come up, whether they're business ideas or life ideas, really tracking them and figuring out like, okay, this idea came up that I got to get out of this apartment or move. Cool.
Yeah,
like,
what are the steps for me to do
yeah,
that?
what are the steps to actually do this? Because in 3 days, that's gone. And we're back to our usual loop and nothing changes. So
Yeah, like even
yeah.
feelings, like, oh, these feelings came up. So like the idea is like, oh, how can I move this feeling through? Like
Right.
it's been like sadness. So what is it that I really need to feel? How can I take action into that feeling and then just like letting it go?
Yeah.
Or like, who do I need to talk to? Maybe it was some grief from like this because I haven't let go of that. And it's just like bringing into awareness that and actually taking action into things will allow you to process the information so much more easy. And that's the hard part. That's where like you hold
Yeah,
on to
I
and you're
mean,
like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. The vision was there. Now
Yeah.
you need to take action on it. And that's your job.
Yeah, and you know, I had some idea to get healthier with my diet and eat cleaner. What's the grounding action? All right, I'm gonna start to cut out, you know, sugar and gluten from my diet. I've wanted to do this for years. Freaking love pizza, you know. So, but okay, that's a simple grounding action. Steps this week are don't eat freaking gluten, and I got to stick to that. And also not taking on too much at once, but whatever the ideas are, it's having some application and some, like in business, we had KPI and metrics. You can see when you fail in a business. They're like, you were supposed to do this, you didn't do this. Yet in our own
Same in life.
lives,
Yeah, like KPI, like metrics, like, oh, I've been like monitoring this part of my life. I didn't take action this week. I actually failed to what I really wanted to do. And now I have to go back again into ayahuasca.
Yeah, and by the way, with all the, you know, with the key performance indicators of our lives, again, not to forget that a lot of them, that's why I like to track baselines like sleep, water, nutrition, because just seeing some of those,
Oh, yeah.
some lights, just seeing some of those starting to get affected, it's important. So yeah, I think we put here just a little worksheet where people could put ideas that come up, some notes. I love personal mantras too, and maybe the word mantra puts some people off. So affirmations, you know, I did a bunch after reading Louise Hay's books. You Can Heal Your Life and You Could Heal Your Body. And so many of these like great healers and thinkers, Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza, everyone talks about these affirmations. So I think writing a list of certain things about your life, about yourself, there's some really important power to it. Mantras and whatever they're called, but
Yes.
I have my own list. I made them.
And I feel that also like affirmations or mantras done in a certain way can be really powerful because you really get the meaning of it. Like once you've shed whatever it is that you're afraid of, and then just like using that mantra is like, ooh.
Remember the loving awareness one?
But you have to really feel
you
it.
have to feel it.
And that's why when you're in an altered state of consciousness, even if something comes up, because you already like engrave it in your body and then you allow it to come up again, then it's so much more powerful than if you just like make it up.
Yeah, because we read we watched a documentary on Ram Dass's life and read a book, and he has this phrase, "I am loving awareness." And at first, it actually kind of bothered me because I was like, I get I am love, but what is this whole awareness part? Like, it just didn't even the word didn't sit with me. And we were in the car, not on psychedelics. We were just driving, but we were, you get excited in the car, you're yapping, and all of a sudden we said it, and we were talking about I am loving awareness. And we said it one time and we were like,
It's
I
about
am
bringing the
loving
energy.
awareness. Yeah, because we brought the energy to it. And so some of these things, I think some of these mantras, when you can combine the energy and when you're in an altered state or after an altered state, you have these elevated emotional centers. So something simple like a mantra, which when I first read that book by Louise Hay in high school, I wrote it off. I was like, this isn't I'm not writing like daily freaking words. But yeah, then later after these kind of experiences,
it becomes so much more powerful.
Amazing.
Because like the thing is that you need to have coherence to
Right.
what you're saying and really feel it in your body. So when you're in that state of like elevated state, then you can really feel it, and then you bring it forward, and it's like your body remembers.
I think, by the way, Sue kept mentioning coherence and that, heart-mind coherence and that bodily coherence. And I feel like altered states are not, that's one of the biggest goals on this journey is, again, bring our life into coherence, into alignment, into integrity. And these are all different tools we could use in different ways to do that. And also experiment with them, share with friends. Like, no one's a professor. Well, there are professors of this stuff, but we're all learning these things and we're sharing it with others. It's surprising how much sharing one thing you went through can help another person. So also just us sharing our experiences with others while we're going through these are really nice. I've shared my mantras with some people during a workshop on journaling, and it's really personal, but it's literally all my stuff. But it's cool. It's nice to share this stuff.
Yeah, once you get to like actually like understand what are they and like really repeat them and understand them, it's really powerful.
Yeah, we added one last section here because we wanted to called spiritual autolysis. And we could explain it, and then it's something that's up to some people if they want to do it. But one of the strongest psychology or personal development techniques that I've read about. I first read about it in Jed McKenna's book. I've worked with a lot of healers and people who work with letters of liberation where you let go of certain things. You just write a letter to a loved one, or you write a letter to a deceased family member. You let things go. But in autolysis, you let go beliefs that no longer serve you. So an example that's really easy is many people might say, okay, money, they know that money is not the root of happiness. Okay, so that's an easy belief. They made a lot of money, they were still miserable, whatever, not in love. So whatever your personal beliefs are that you learn are no longer true, it's the only way to unlearn something. And that was the most confusing thing to me on any kind of spiritual journey when people talk about unlearning things. There is no way to just magically take a pill and forget. So to unlearn is to prove the logical egoic mind that this is not true. This was a belief that this person is good for me, or feeling like this makes me feel good. So doing this process takes usually from when I read it it's a 2-3 year process. So I just keep it somewhere.
Or a one-day process in an ayahuasca ceremony.
Or a one-day process. But yeah, really to do this and to let go of some of these beliefs, limiting beliefs or others, you can start in one day and maybe write down 20 that came up in ayahuasca, but they're going to keep coming up. And when people say peeling back the onion, that's what it is. It's, oof, I used to believe this was true. I believe that was true. I believe that was true. So it's a pretty cool tool as beliefs, especially on psychedelics, a lot of beliefs about the physical universe start to change
and start to disappear.
Yeah,
or about like many things.
Yeah.
And so like even for me, like even writing this prior to entering into a ceremony, which is like so intention, what is it that I want to work on, and what are my beliefs on that intention? So basically it's like, oh, I want to sell my house, but maybe my belief is like, oh, it's really hard to sell my house. And then maybe after a ceremony, I'm like, no, it's not really hard. I just needed to let go of it. And
I believed it was hard.
I believed it was hard, but it wasn't. So it really is going into like, oh, that space where it's like, what are my beliefs? And then like even maybe the root of all of it was like a memory that I don't even remember, because like maybe it was like hard to do this when I was a child, but then that belief no longer exists. So it's so important to like even write the ones that you wanna kind of like
Cross off the
cross
list.
up the list and be like, yes, that one
Yeah.
crossed off.
Yeah, I believed I needed validation for everything I did. I believed I needed this and that. And then you start to see that almost all of them start to disappear eventually till there's none, ideally. But yeah, that takes a while.
And then you can be free.
And you can be free.
And then you can be
let
free.
go.
And I feel that that's the whole point of like even this, which is like allowing
And
you
you're
to live
present.
a more free life and be present to what's going on.
Yeah, I think when Sue said free, it's like I think that's the thing. At the end of the day, the more free we are, free of everything, free of worry, free of fear, free of addictions, free of all the shit that we want to be free of or don't want to be free of, then we feel good. Then
Well,
we're
we
like,
can choose what to do with our lives, and
Yeah.
it's like a more conscious choice. It's always about bringing awareness into
Right.
what we're doing.
and then
That's what I feel. Yeah.
yeah, and it all should take us back to the present moment. It's nice to explore the past on psychedelics or dream of the future, but the goal is to be present, awake, observing life, seeing how it communicates. That's whenever I see someone who's present, just watching, sitting on their porch, watching the sunset. They're just present to the moment, because there's a lot of shit that is clear from their mind. So in all these letting go processes, just being able to drop back into that presence at the end and just be there with life. We don't have to go into some somatic state and float off, but just be here, feel it, all of it, the ups and the downs.
Yeah, and I feel that that's the whole point of it. It's like the more you let go, the freer you are to choose whatever it is that you want to do with your life. And so it's more a conscious choice. It's like, oh, I want to dedicate my life to this specifically. I no longer need to heal anything. So what is it that I want to do with all of this new energy that I have?
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe some rewiring in the old body.
Yeah, and how can I be of service? How can I share more? How can I give, like how
Yeah.
can I just share more of my gifts? That's also like I feel the goal, which is like finding yourself to be able to share with others and not be so worried about like the healing process.
Yeah, and just enjoy life a bit, share.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, so that's kind of most of the traditional side to the integration process that we like to do before and after. Also went in a little bit into some of our personal practices that are not traditionally like integration therapies or other things. Yeah, to just try to bring a holistic view to all of this stuff and into this process. So yeah, I think we're gonna pause for now and let if there's any questions,
of course.
Wayne
Now we
or
have like Q&A.
Lily join us. So
Q&A and like whatever it is that you feel that you want to share, and yeah, we're happy to answer.
No, this has been fantastic. I feel like even I took this microdosing experience and it talked about integration, but I didn't know. I mean, I think that you lay it out in such a wonderful format. This has been very valuable, and I spent a lot of time also in China, and there's certain traumas there, the Cultural Revolution, and others that haven't really been engaged, and yet run a culture that we see the control and the need for controlling human behavior that might not be friendly, and how extreme it potentially could become. I part of my mission is also to try to transfer some of these concepts and learnings to that culture, and we kind of have a little bit of a mindfulness center there and float tanks, and this is. But let me ask this, guys. I mean, here you have all this wonderful content and how you present it. Just the feel. I mean, I feel like I'm what are the contact high or whatever with you.
thanks, Wayne.
Thank you.
However, I have to observe. that your marketing needs a boost or something. There should be like 20, 30 people on this. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yes,
we've had other
definitely.
ones where there's like 30, 40 people. We have ones where there's two. So like we do these and we leave them recorded now so that people could just download the recorded ones. We saw some people, but we talked about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very weird. Sometimes we don't have as much
Yeah.
people. Sometimes we
We
do.
just show up to do the work
Yeah,
regardless.
and
But
I'm
you're
like-
right. We're gonna start marketing a little bit more this work and the guide. I think we're just starting it off. So
Yeah.
Well, it's really, you guys, you really, your grade is A, exceeded expectations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That means a
Thank
lot.
you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I learned quite a bit, and I, have some of my own mantras, but I think, possibly you sharing, Edward, some of your mantras as well, that other people can get a little more of a concrete idea. One mantra I've heard is quite powerful, and I used it this morning, is when you get up, like, today is going to be a great day. And it's not, and I love Ram Dass and, the loving, I am loving awareness. It's one of my, he's on my screensaver, Ram Dass, who I tended to know. So I don't know if you can see the photo of
Kind of
him.
blurry, but oh yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
So I just, it's also, in terms of hope for the future, and you read all this shit news and Trump and all the bullshit, and then coming across these seeds of emanation that you're providing, really very, it's just good work, and I'll keep it up. And yeah, I look forward to getting the material, and I'm pretty sure you have I registered, so you have my
And
email.
I'll send you some of the journaling videos that I did that have the mantras and all that stuff. They're cool.
Yes, and also Wayne, like I mean, we never know why this happens, but we're also open to like collaborations with people.
Yeah,
so
when
like,
you were saying
so when
the
you were saying
mindfulness
the
centers,
mindfulness
yeah.
center, I mean, we will be happy to share as well with your center.
Well, I'm going in a little bit of a fantasy world, is working with these neuroscientists to be able to have a device that would give people a more present awareness experience, around which this integration is also critical. Without the integration, you're not going to make the kind of changes. So I'm taking this in, and really a little bit blown away by these 2 hours. And thank you kindly. And I hope I can take some of this energy and be able to pass it on, as I know it's meant to be.
Thank you. Yeah, and you have our emails too, so feel free to be in touch with us, and we'll write you an email after too. But the recording will be online, so if you meet someone who you feel needs it, you could share the link with them, and it'll be recorded. Yeah. Well, thank you.
With much gratitude.
Ciao. I don't know. I see Lily here, but if she has any questions, Lily, if there's anything you wanted to ask, feel free.
Yes. Also, yes, if you like, because you missed part of it, then
Yeah, we'll send Lily the
we'll send
recording.
you-
Hi. Well, I messed up with the time zone, and I think up 1 hour and a half after it.
No
So I'm
worries.
excited to rewatch it again and put in practices everything you're sharing. But since the moment I read your workshop in the website, I feel the connection, because I'm being all this spiritual process, trying to find myself and heal myself and all this, and I'm getting struggling to like integrating everything, and I'm getting in the loop of living of my usual life, and it's really hard, because sometimes I'm get excited about everything I've been getting and learning and feeling, but suddenly I just get back to the loop again. So it's hard, but I'm excited to rewatch this again and put in practice everything you were sharing. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. And are you gonna share the PDF, like for
Yes.
printed?
Yeah, we're going to send the video, the PDF, and a few other things that we mentioned that might be helpful, like some of the books and the things.
Mhm.
Yeah, and some extra videos that we both have. And yeah, and with what you were saying, it's a lot of different things to integrate. So be gentle on yourself too.
Mhm.
That process, it's a lifetime. You know, we learn, we go back to our loops. So yeah, taking it easy and slow and gentle is important.
Thank you. No, thank you so much.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you,
Thank you so
both.
much, and
Yeah.
thank you for coming.
Yeah, and as soon as everything is downloaded, we will send it to y'all. And to those who are watching the recording, yeah, they'll be available for a while.
Yes.
Cool.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
guys.
much.
Okay,
Bye.
have a good night. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lily.